Alright, so welcome back. In today's video, since it's been a little while, I have a pretty large update video of a whole bunch of new and interesting things, so might as well get right into it. So first off, grab it. You have a Bachmann Spectrum Amtrak F40, which the handrails want to fall off apparently. So yeah, this is one new acquisition. I don't really have any cars yet, but at some point I would potentially like to get some Horizons for it. And yeah, I got this along with the next thing you're going to see in a trade with a friend of mine. I'm not going to show the stuff, well, pictures of the stuff I got rid of in this video, but in the future, I'm contemplating doing this like once every month or two, so maybe in the next one I will share it just a bit. So, it's the first thing from that. The second thing, which I am more so excited about, is a Bowser Challenger. So this needs work. I also will test run all the DC engines after this, so I can't run this because it's DCC. I have a tender, which it's a Pennsylvania Railroad tender, so it isn't right. So I need to get a new one for it at some point, but yeah, that will be a future project. So get this out of the way for a second, and then I will be back. Alright, so next up I have a couple of things that I got for free. So first off, it is this lifelike US plywood car. Yeah, this car, it was free basically because the trucks, it came with these screw-on trucks, and it was lifelike trucks before. So they were the clip-in type, so I had to modify it to get the trucks in. But yeah, that is the first of the free things. The second one is this little dummy Hobbyline, I think it's a Hobbyline switcher. I plan on heavily weathering this and using it as like some sort of thing that was just pulled out of a scrapyard or something to be transported. And third, of the last of the free things, which I like, is this Intermountain grain car. I got this because the truck was broken from someone at the club I go to. Pull it out quickly. Yeah. Pretty nice car, and as you'll see soon in this video, there's a lot more of the grain car theme going on here, because I'm actually building a grain train, which, as you'll see now, is pretty much complete. So, on to the next bit. Alright, so next up is two just smaller things, which I got in a trade with, that I traded with some friends, some Power Lock track. So I ended up with these two. So first off, it's another grain car. It's a Montana Rail Link car. I believe this is the first and only piece of Montana Rail Link rolling stock that I own, which is sort of interesting. And second, which will be an interesting future project, is a Tyco Chattanooga. I have a Santa Fe version of this, and I also have a Clementine, but those are pretty beat up. And this actually has the front truck, so it'll be an interesting project. So that's a little bit. Now on to the next thing, which is pretty interesting. Okay, so now everything that I'm about to show in this little clip was all a total of $23 as a fairly big lot, which I'm pretty excited about. So most boring thing first is not one of these, but two ATSF old-time passenger cars from Tyco. I don't have much old-time rolling stock, so these are pretty useful in building that fleet just a little bit, since I have a few older engines, like 1800s era, like my 240s. And on the same page, I got a second Tyco 460, which I plan on some point to redetail and repaint to Sierra Railroad 3. And that's not all. So the last of the American bit, which there's more to this lot, is this Great Northern Athearn rotary snowplow, which I did a little bit of work to. I got this spinning pretty freely and installed a Kadee on the back. And then the rest of this, we'll go into this first. First off here is this little, I think it's a cattle car. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I have my Hornby Peckett, and I don't actually have any rolling stock prior to this. So here's the first part of it, and there's a lot more of this. Then I got, I believe, a Great Western brake van. Then there's also this little van. I don't know what railroad it is, but it seems like it'll fit with the Peckett pretty well. And we have this coal hopper and a second one. And then here there's a few more. We've got 2 salt cars. A third salt car. A tank car. This one might not be British, but it seems 00. It's a Bachmann car. So yeah, it seems a bit weird, but I think it'll fit also. And then we've got this little low-sided car. I don't know what this would carry, but it's sort of interesting. And lastly, which I'm excited about, it's open cab pannier tank engine. So yeah, all this is all $23. So now on to the next thing. Alright, so next up I have one thing to talk about that I got rid of because it relates to what I'm about to show you. But in the first thing with the Challenger and the F40, I also got a DCC PRR Decapod, and I traded that away and a few freight cars away for this next few things. So, first up of this, obviously, you know, another grain car, because I need more of those. And then, we have a full blue box passenger car set of Southern Pacific cars. So there's that one. A baggage, even though it's Union Pacific, still in the same scheme. Boxes are hard to close sometimes. And then I have, I'm pretty sure this one's a coach. It could also be a diner or a sleeper. Second to last, I've got what I'm pretty, yeah, it says it on the car, it's a diner. I've got one more of these. It is an no, that one's not the observation car, it's another coach. I have an observation car somewhere, I just forget exactly where I put it. So there is another car to the set, I just don't have it with me right this second. So, yeah. Now, on to the next thing. Alright, so everything in this next group was a gift from a friend, and yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I've been building a grain train, and I don't really need any more grain cars now, because I got one grain car, that one's a Sinclair car. 2, this is an interesting plastics car. 3, 4, this one's Gulf, which is, they sponsor a lot of race teams, which I'm a fan of racing if anyone was unaware. 5, Chevron car. 6, 7, and I think this might be my first New York Central piece of rolling stock. 8, and then finally 9. So yeah, I think I have a pretty good assortment of grain cars now. So that's it for all these grain cars. Yet another thing after this. Alright, so next up we have something else pretty interesting. So this is a DCC Sound Proto 2000 Southern Pacific PA. It's a little bit beat up, but I traded this with a friend for my Southern Pacific, what was it? No, it was my Rock Island switcher that with DCC that I bought for $20 at a show. So I would consider this a great deal. And yeah, I can't run it with the other stuff I'm going to show you later on in the video just because it's DCC. So that's this out of the way. On to the next bit. Alright, so next up is some more stuff that I bought. And first of them is a second Bowser Challenger with a tender, although it needs wheels. This was $7, and at this point, this one, I could be able to test run for you. The tender isn't really capable of picking up any power, so I'll just use a wire. This one doesn't have a decoder yet, and I don't think I mentioned my plans, but I want to detail and repaint both of these Challengers and upgrade them with new motors and stuff in DCC and Sound to be Rio Grande Challengers. So yeah, that's my plan with these. So now I've got 2 of them. I'll get this out of the way quickly. It's also a very heavy model. Next up, this is the second and final thing of this little bit that I bought. So this is a Kit Bash 2662, along with a tender that has a booster truck. So this was $6, and this one though, it was a bit confusing to figure it out, but this is a brass 2662 chassis with a die-cast 462 boiler. I'm probably going to repaint this to look slightly more, I don't know what the right word is, but yeah, slightly nicer. And yeah, I can test run both these because they're DC. So I bought both of them for the combined total of $13. So on to the next little thing. Alright, so next up I have a whole bunch of things that I traded for some Tyco cars and some KD couplers and metal wheels, which I felt was fair. It was a good way to get rid of some stuff. First of all, I'll just start with the engine. It is a third 240. One of mine is missing the drive shaft, so I have one functional one. I plan on repainting and detailing one of them, but that's a future project. So this one, I tested it a bit. It seems to run fine, but I can show you that later. That's the first bit. And then I was talking about this earlier, but here's one old-time combine car. So, since I don't have many of these, I've got more of these, which you'll see. This one, another just old-time coach. So another Tyco combine, so it matches the other cars with that 4.6 on. And then the Central Pacific passenger car. So my goal is to potentially repaint and reuse most of these cars. So that's that bit. Even though these next few things came a little bit separately, I'm going to combine them together since there's very few. All of these were a gift to me. So first off is this sort of Southern Pacific, although it says Pacific South passenger car, which was a gift to me because it was falling apart. So it doesn't look the greatest, but it's all put together and is a functional car now. That was the first thing. The next one, remember how I was talking about grain cars? This is an older style Union Pacific grain car. A Wabash cylindrical grain car, and I think this is the first Wabash car I have. And then this other grain car. So yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to need to buy more grain cars for a while. So yeah, that's this little bit. I've just got a little bit more after this. Alright, so next up I have a few gifts, again from 2 different people. So first off, from the same place that I got my, the Challenger and the 2662, I was gifted these 2 unpainted 2-bays from a friend who bought them for $1 each to steal the wheels and couplers. So they will be a future repainting project, just something small to note. It probably won't be for a while. And then next up I had 2 more cars gifted to me by an older member of the club I go to. So this one, it's not also in the greatest shape, but I'm going to add some new numbers here where this was painted over, and on that side also. I repainted the roof and the ends of the car and added a new underframe. So yeah, and I plan on weathering that when it's all said and done. And then this one was also a gift. It was a really not so great looking AHM car. It still doesn't look the greatest now, it's a bit glossy, but I plan on decaling it soon for my fictional railroad, which has been an interesting idea in my mind and some friends have recommended me do. So yeah, that's going to get decaled soon. So that's that bit. Alright, so next up, I got these next 4 cars by trading away a bunch of old Tyco cars that I didn't need, which is good for me. So, first off, another Pacific South car. I think this one's a chair car, but I might be wrong about that. These are also all to go with my PA. And there's this car. I think this is a sleeper, but I'm not 100% sure. There is this, which I think on the other side it might say it. I think this, or one of the other ones, is a tavern car. And then lastly, I have this dome car, which right now has a dust monkey because I was running it at the club I go to. So yeah, I have a pretty decent train of these now. Alright, so next up is one thing, but it's something I'm fairly excited about. The wiring on it doesn't look the greatest right now because I've been working on it, but it wasn't an acquisition I planned. But this is a Bachmann GS4. It was an interesting turn of events, which, yeah, I ended up with this. I wasn't planning on it. I've wanted one for some time, and now I have one. So, yeah, there's not much to say about that. I can run it. The lights don't work right now. I need to clean up this wiring mess here with some heat shrink tube, but yeah. So, it was an interesting surprise, which I'm not unhappy about. So, on to the next thing. Alright, so it seems like I've gone through a ton, but I still have a fair bit more left. So, just go into it. These next few cars were also, once again, gifts. So, first off is this wood. It's supposed to be a boom crane tender thing, but it has a crane arm on it. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it, since it's an interesting car. I don't really want to make it a crane tender, but I need to do a lot to get this an actual working crane, so yeah, probably won't be seen for a while. Next up, another one. This I have a lot of hopes for, which I won't share now because it'll be a future project. I do need to get it a hook though, because it doesn't have one. And then next up is a set pretty much complete, which is a Bachmann crane, a Lionel boom car. Not much to say here. They have metal wheels too, so I can run them at the club I go to. That's that quickly out of the way, and on to the next thing. And next up is a DC model that I was once again gifted by a friend. Although this time it is a Pennsylvania Railroad K4. So the story behind this is that I was helping my friend take his other non-Streamline K4 and put it on the Streamline K4 chassis. So in return, he gave me this since he didn't really have a use for it nor want for it. So I have it now, and I don't know exactly what I'll do with it, but it is an interesting model, so I will run this at the end with everything else. So on to the next little thing. Alright, so this next one is also just a sort of small thing. So I got all these cars through trades with some friends. I forget exactly what I traded, but first off is this one blank unlettered hopper, which is really interesting, which I like. I have a Burlington Northern hopper that's sort of like this, except it's black and not brown. And this is interesting. It's a Golden West. I believe it's an Athearn Blue Box boxcar, but I do very much like it. I have a few other 50-foots it fits in well with. And last little one. This was a kit I had to build, but this was an Athearn, I think, 57-foot mechanical reefer kit, which I upgraded to have metal wheels and such. So, yeah, that's just that little bit out of the way. Alright, so these last few things, I believe there's about 15 more things that'll go through pretty quickly. They were all gifts. So there are some log cars. So this is the first one. All of these have real logs, metal wheels. This one is a Dust Monkey because, again, I was running it at the club, and Katie's on them. So that's one. This is the second one. A third one. A fourth one. And a fifth one. Then I have another container of them with 4 more in here. I've got this one to make 6, 7. These next 3 aren't as nice, but they're still decent cars. 8 and 9. So yeah, I have a full log train to go with my 2662 whenever that's done, and both of my shays. So I'll get these cleaned up and go on to the last thing. Alright, and now on to the last few things, which were once again, like the previous few, a gift from another friend. So these first 2 are slightly more crappy, honestly. So this one is a Swift Livestock Express car from Lifelike, I believe. And I think this is also another Lifelike car, and it's a Katie cattle car. So yeah, these cars I sort of like the look of more than the other ones, so I'm keeping them as they are and not upgrading them to metal wheels or anything. And these next few, I believe this one's an unlettered Bachmann car that I'm going to letter to some railroad. And then these next 4 were in Tyco colors, and I've been repainting them. So currently they're glossy, but I want to decal and matte clear cut them. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 of these. All of them are by Tyco. So yeah, that's what I've been working on with all these. I've been painting them up. So at some point soon, maybe when I do the next update video, they might all be done. So yeah, that's everything that's been new. So I'll show you and test out some of the new engines once I get all this stuff cleaned up and the track out. Alright, so the first thing up to test is this Bachmann F40, which I'm already pretty sure I know it works. Yep. So this one runs just fine and has flashing lights. Okay, so next up is the Pannier, and it also runs pretty well. It does have a bit of a rear end issue because it's doing some jumping and clicking around there, so I need to work on that, but it runs too. Alright, so next up is the Tyco 460, which I have lower hopes for. I guess it does run. Definitely needs some fresh oil though. Yeah, I'm not going to run that too much. It runs, but needs work. Next up is the Tyco Chattanooga, which I don't have high expectations for, but we'll see how it does. Nothing? Oh. Yeah, that's not good. Sounds like it needs fresh oil. A lot of it. Seems to be quietish going backwards, so it's a project, but it doesn't seem hopeless at all. This I don't have the tender hooked up just because I'm not having that high of hopes for it, but we'll try it anyway. So, get a little something. Yeah, I probably won't run this too much now. It will need some work. It might be a restoration video in the future, but it does seem to be running-ish. So yeah, that one's more than I expected. Alright, so I have a wire hooked up to this, and I just turned on the power since I don't really have 3 hands. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it's moving. It seems like it's got some sort of drive shaft issue. So this one isn't going to go for now. Next up is the 240. Nothing yet. Oh, there we go. Actually runs pretty smooth. Let's try backwards. A bit louder backwards, but it does indeed run. So on to the second to the last thing. Next up is the Streamline K4 with the older Bachmann chassis underneath, which does indeed seem to run. Go backwards now. Yeah, that one's good. So on to the last engine. Alright, so lastly we've got the GS4, which backwards doesn't quite work because of the current wiring situation. But it does indeed run. So yes, thanks for watching this pretty long update.